Welcome back, everybody. Just Mike here. Anyway, today we have another clock to work on. Oh, yeah. Anyway, this here one is kind of, let's say, destroyed. It's a United clock, and it has the ballerina with the music box in it. Let's show you what I ended up with. So, yes, I knew it was in this condition. It does have the metal frame that goes onto the box where the dancer is. It doesn't have this piece in here, and watching on forums, they say to take a plastic, with a 2 liter, 4 liter, those big plastic bottles of pop, and cut out the side and use that in here, because the original, they say, is just as flimsy. So if that's going to work, fantastic. You can see the clock is not together on there. I haven't tried plugging this in yet. The music box, I did hot wire it, we'll say, in there, and this does run. It does have this, it's bent. This here, I don't know if that must be a starter to get it started. On some of these they might need that. This is the back. And it says turn gently clockwise, so I'm going to guess that there is a switch to get it to start dancing, just in case it doesn't start up on its own. And this here says it's a light switch. Obviously this is destroyed, and so I don't know what I'm going to do. I'll copy this with a board that'll put this back on, but all this stuff I don't know just exactly what I'm going to do. I guess you have to stay tuned to find out. This here's the disc that fits on here. The ballerina has this piece of metal here that makes it so she dances up and down. I tried that in there, and if it's going to touch, her legs disappear down so far. So I have a feeling this is stuffed up inside her too far. I haven't dealt with it yet, and obviously she's going to need some cleaning up anyway. And this here part's going to be the easy part. The dress, it looks like it's loose, so I'll see if I can get that dress off of there and try cleaning it up. These little diamonds that are on her dress, looks like they're all missing. There's one there. There's one. So there's about 3 of them, but should be able to go to a craft store and take care of that. This here, you can see a lot of moisture damage. So there's a chance I might be able to glue some of this back. There's a few extra pieces over here, probably not enough, but realistically it almost doesn't matter, because this board here, even if I had to replace it, just paint it brown. It's not something that's showy, it's kind of hidden in under here. This part here that's bouncing up and down, that's what's supposed to push the rod that's on the ballerina and make her jump up and down. Now, what turns this disc, I don't know. I don't know if it's supposed to turn or not, or if she just bounces up and down, because I've never had one. Or I should say I've got one I haven't repaired or even looked at yet, but it's all together. But I thought this would be a challenge, and you know me, I'm into challenges, I guess. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take that music box out and see about adjusting it. These don't want to come out, they need a screwdriver also. So I don't know if I can get this out of here. or if I'm going to have to take everything out. That's what it looks like. So I'm going to go ahead and take these 4 screws out, and I'll be back, because that way it'll be all one piece still. We got this thing out, and in case you didn't notice, because it's hidden, this here is like another clock motor. So it actually has this motor to operate the ballerina and music box, and then there's another motor inside here that'll operate the clock. And like I said, I don't know if it works yet or not. So anyway, we have this off. Let me pull these extra screws out. So what I need to do is loosen these and adjust them till they start hitting these combs and making a louder noise than what they are. And trying to center up the musical part of the, what do they call that, with the forks, with the music. Now, you can hear that obviously, but that's what I consider a struggle, and it's pushing too hard on the teeth. So now that I have it in the blank zone, I'm going to go ahead and adjust it again. But I might as well do it off camera because my hand just gets in the way. There's a screw here you loosen so you can push that screw in, and that'll adjust to tighten the barrel up. This barrel was wiggling around quite a bit. And the same on this side, you loosen that screw, push in just a little bit and try it. Finally, after I could get this barrel to settle down, I was able to get the teeth where they need to go, I do believe. So that's the end of it. So, and I put a drop of oil on the end of the barrel just down inside there. Not gonna do too much with this. I could take a toothbrush and brush it down, but actually, besides a little bit of rust on here, it doesn't look bad. The brass is discolored a little bit, but it's not a big dust spot on there, so I'm good with that as long as this thing's going. So, before I start with the movement, I think I'm gonna take and clean this the best I can. I'm not even sure how you get this thing off of there. By the looks of it, there's a nut. I don't know if you can see that or not without the light. There's a nut right here and a nut right there, and if I get those off, that looks like it's part of this plate just right here, and I should be able to pull this whole thing off of here so I can actually work on this. So let me see about taking those 2 nuts off, and I'll be right back. Of course, this couldn't be easy. I took the 2 nuts off on the lower part. This plate evidently just has a hole in it, and so I'm going to take the nut off here and the nut off here, and then that way I can separate the motor off of this frame, and somehow or another, or maybe this will go ahead and pull off after I get these 2 nuts off. So again, I'll be right back in a few seconds. All 4 nuts are off. Let's see what happens here. So there's our motor. That's easy enough, huh? So Let me undo these wires so we can separate that motor off of here. So I do want to take this apart because it's so dirty, rusty, and whatnot. Get everything seems to move pretty good anyway, but that's beside the point. You can see this plate here moves up and down for the ballerina. And it all needs cleaned up. So I'm going to take this thing apart, and the only thing I need to do is take these last two nuts off, and this whole thing should come apart. Now, just in case you're going to do this and you think you're going to get lost, take some pictures. Now, because of these coming through the plate, I'm going to turn it upside down, or whatever this is, and we're going to take it apart so that way we can see where the gears are setting. Not sure if they're going to pop out or not. There we go. So here you have a fiber gear, and according to Time for Clocks, he says that the book says this here needs to be, let's call it oil soaked, not drenched, but oil soaked, because that's what keeps the health of that gear, and you're not going to want to put it through your movement cleaner either. So let me put this gear back in. That's where it's supposed to sit, and let's get a picture of that. Anyway, this fiber gear goes to the start, I guess I'll call it. We can push that up and out of the way for now. Actually, well, we'll get to it. I think this might unscrew from there. So this is a gear that was giving me a problem. Actually, those two, I swear, look exactly alike. I have to check to make sure. This isn't a clock, this is just the music, so gearing doesn't matter as much. And then this one here goes to the star wheel, and I'm not sure that I can get that one off either, because that's pressure fitted on there, and I just do not disturb too much because I want this thing to go again. This one here, it has a pressure fit washer, what do you want to call that, on there too. I took the two nails out, and this comes out. Now why couldn't that side look as good as this? Let me see what I can do with this. Looking this over, actually there were no screws. This here was glued on to there. This piece here was glued on to here. And then these two holes are meant for the feet of this to hook in. And then of course there's a bolt or a nut that goes on here to hold it into place. So what I think I'm going to do is clean this up a little bit, glue it together, and then besides some stain, I'm going to put a finish over this. So I'm going to guess this is either broken off because they were going to try to fix it, or it was outside. Who knows? There's some, we'll say, moisture damage on here. It could have been just from sitting in the garage. So that's what I'm going to do, is just clean this up, glue it back on, and see what I can come up with. As for her, she needs repainted, because you can see how bright pink that used to be down there. And I don't know if I can get this off, but I do know this rod needs to come out a little further, and maybe that's going to take it out. It's kind of like a plug. And the feet must just fit right in there. Take the thread off that snugs this up, and then put new thread on after I get this cleaned up. And it looks like there's a thread that'll go around here, so I'm going to clip that and see what happens. So right where the seam of the dress was, I was able to clip it, and it looks like it's opened up pretty good, so now I should be able to just get that dress off of there. Now I'll wash that and then liven it back up again. This here is kind of trash, but I want to keep it. So I'm going to try hand washing this thing in different stuff until I can possibly get it white or cream again. So the clock runs, so that's a good thing. I just temporarily wired it up just to see what it'd do. But I'm going to remove the movement now after I unplug it. And that means I'm going to take these two nuts off, and this plate should come off, and this should come out this way. And then to get into here, because this has got some good corrosion going on here. Don't know if I can get that clean or not. I know I can get the glass clean. But just the same, I need to bend these up. So that way this will come out so I can get to the hands and take the hands off so I can get this all apart. And these are cardboard, kind of like a spacer. I see it only has one, but that's so you don't cinch down too tight, in which this would never get cinched down that far. I don't believe. Well, I guess if you were able to, the motor wouldn't touch because this comes out. So before I start this, like I say, I want to clean this up, get them glued together and onto the board. kind of like that. Clean half of it, and that's what it used to look like. Well, it looks better than what it did. It's so pitted right along here from being outside or in the damp weather for so long that it's really in there. So I guess what you do is you put this at the bottom of the clock where it's not seen as much because you're usually looking down on the clock. But I'm happy with the way it turned out. So the wire on her is way too short. As you can see, she can't even stand flat-footed if she wanted to because that wire doesn't work. And to get it to move up and down, she's sitting on it. That's not the way it's supposed to be. Let's plug it in. See how she moves. Let me find, there we go. So I got to figure out what it is she needs. I got carried away, I do believe, and didn't show you me putting this back together again. But those two gears that I told you earlier that look pretty much exactly alike, the difference is the shaft that comes through the plate. One was shorter than the other one, and what you're doing is you're lining up the gears to hit each other. And if you take one of these apart, pay attention to that so you know which one goes to what hole, I guess we'll put it that way. And this rod I'm putting in, the other rod on the girl was too short because it must have broke off at one time, and so that's why I'm putting this one on. And I still have to do some measurements and cut it off to the right length. And this is what the rod is supposed to go into. I don't know if I can get that out of there, or if I'm just going to take and solder this to the end when I finally get my final measurement. So another note, you see these black spots, that's where the diamonds are supposed to be, and there's one diamond available there, one there, and that's about it. And so I went to the craft store, and I didn't have my glasses, but I bought these. These almost cost me as much as the clock did. I didn't know I was buying, what do they call that, bracelets? And these aren't necessarily diamonds. I see that they're, we'll call it a round bead with the sparkles on it, and that will work also. I also gave a quick strip of this, didn't try my most perfect or anything else. This still needs to be glued down to the base, and I pretty much got most of this off of here. I need to steel wool this real quick, and then I'm going to give it a stain, some kind of a cherry stain if I could find it around here. I might try that on here, but like I say, first I'm going to steel wool this whole thing one more time, and then I'm going to go ahead and get this glued. Then I'll stain it after this is all back together again. So like I said before, this is a red color, and I decided to go with this one. Coat 1. I'm not wiping it off, I'm letting it dry on there. We'll see how things go. Let's go for another coat. So I forgot to show it before I put the finish on, but this is the second coat and 2 coats. So now to put this here in, and then we're going to adjust this rod that's supposed to go make the ballerina dance. So I have the music box screwed in. The wire comes up through this board here, and I didn't have a thick enough board, but it'll do. It's just there to hide the movement to the music box, because after I get this cleaned off, this screws down onto there. In here, that's all it is, just something to protect this. And of course this wire comes up through the power, and all in behind here is where all the wiring takes place, because this here hides it. When you put this in like this, you have all this space here that you can do your wiring, tuck it in, whatever. So here's this plate in. I haven't put the nail in yet, but when you put the wire in, there is a hole up here that your wire goes through in order for it to come down here and wire it in properly with the rest of these wires here. So on this so-called mirror finish, you can see how rough it is because of the rust that was in there. I did put a little bit of a wax on here to try to protect it so it doesn't happen again or any worse. And I'll pop a couple nails in there and that'll be in. Installed this bottom plate, you just twist it on, snug it up, because this does not go around. You have this brass piece. Didn't worry about cleaning it up because I don't really want to show too much. It screws onto here and snug it up, and then your ballerina dancer rod will fit down inside there that we still have to adjust. Screw the light in, shove the wires through the back, and they come down here, so they're ready to be wired in. For this, I went to buy a bottle of 2-liter pop and I forgot to get it today, so it's gonna have to wait. There's a nail here and a nail here, and you notice this one's bent down. I didn't do it, this way it is. This one's bent to the side. So once you cut your pop bottle out for, let's call it the glass in here, you would poke the hole so this would fit up, and it's going to hold it into place, and then the other one will slide over because you have a hole in it, and that should pretty much hold it. And you have these 2 pegs here that fit in there. And you got a bolt up here. It sets in there. And you have this, I haven't cleaned it up yet, but this here screws onto this. And that's what holds this into place. And then if you ever need to change the light bulb, you'd go ahead, unscrew that, pop that out, and it's ready to change the light bulb. So to figure out the ballerina's height I need, I went ahead and turned this rod here that you're supposed to turn to start it. I got this plate up here that moves back and forth. I turned it until it hits the tip of the star, which is the maximum height it can get. And now I know that I can put the ballerina on there, and her shoes should not be touching the white plate. So I will be, if I can, soldering this onto that rod, but right now I'm trying to get a close estimate, and then I can adjust by pulling the rod out, and if need be, clipping a little off of the end of the rod. I mean, right now she's way up here, and with that maximum up, she's got to be in this area where her feet are not touching. So there you can tell my wire's just a little bit too tall because her foot can barely drag down there. I cut just about an 1/8 inch off, and she seems to be, I mean, it's not rocket scientist. She is turning around and whatnot, and that's the main thing, is to get her to move. So now to finish her dress. For her dress, I couldn't find the little diamonds. Like that, there's one of the diamonds. But there's these kind of little bit clunkier things, but it's as small as I could find. And they do have a little bit of a shimmer on them. So now I need to get a needle and thread, sew this back up and make sure it's on her. And then there's this pull string, I guess let's say, around here. I'll make a new one to bring it around her waist. So now that I have the clock all cleaned up, working and whatnot, I had to wire it. I'm going to give a disclaimer. You do it however you want to wire it. I'll give you a basic idea, and all I got to say is if you don't know anything about wiring, then go ahead and put the clock back, plug it in. If it blows up, you did it. You did it wrong. This brown wire here is my power coming in, and what it is it's split here. Technically speaking, we'll call it, even though it's brown, we have a white wire and a black wire. So the light takes a white wire and a black wire. The motor to the dancer is 2 yellow wires, but you just in your mind turn one of them white. So all the white wires, technically speaking, all get hooked up. So we have a white wire to the light. This black wire here goes over to the motor of the clock, so it'll go in there. We have one of the wires going from the motor to the music in there, and of course, I think I said the power, the plug-in, that one wire goes in there. That's all that's in that one there. Now for the other side of our power wire, we're going to call all these black. One is black. It goes from the movement for the clock, and then another, let's call it a heavier wire, 'cause it looks heavier, goes over to your on and off switch. And from the on and off switch, it comes up. So we're done with that basically. It comes up into here because this here is feeding the power to only the light and the motor here that makes the dancer dance. A little bit confusing, but maybe you want to play this over again. I'm gonna maybe try to make a drawing for you to kind of give you an idea of how that's supposed to go. But in the meantime, all of this gets tucked in here. This here switch will drop through this crack in the board that was here because the switch has to go here, and that's going to be clear down here. This here is the starter for the dancer music box. Sometimes it'll start on its own, sometimes it doesn't. And then I pre-drilled holes in here so I can re-nail it back where it was, and I hope I hit the mark. If not, they're going in right where they're at. I am not an artist unless I want to be. I'm not selling this, so here you go. The wiring diagram. You got your plug-in, you have your clock, you have the light over the ballerina, you got the ballerina motor, and there's that switch that you'll turn on to turn on the ballerina to start dancing with the music, and it also turns on the light. So the way I have mine wired is the plug-in comes in, and the only thing that's hooking right over to, let's call it the hot side, is one side of the clock I want to be hot all the time, and this here wire goes down to the one side of the switch. It doesn't matter which side, just one side of the switch. That needs to be hot all the time also. The time this here switch gets clicked on, that's when it brings power over to here. And so the ballerina and music wire will come over to hook into the switch, and one side of the light hooks into the switch. The yellow wire, everything connects, we'll say, to the other side of this plug, which I've tried drawing the lines in there, and they all hook here. So you have the clock that will hook in there. You have one side of the light bulb that hooks in there, and you have the one side of the music box and dancer that hooks in there. So we finally got the United ballerina clock going again. Like I say, I'm not thrilled that all the notes don't hit on the music, and I'm not really thrilled with the music box, but it is something different. Anyway, after refinishing the outside of the clock, getting it all glued back together besides, I think I ended up with a pretty nice clock. What do you think? Don't forget to subscribe because it's free. And until next time, God bless.